So in this Tobacco University video, we're going to be looking at crime scene classification and a couple examples as well as how we would classify certain crimes given some information. So first off, we want to think about what types of crimes are there. Well, there's homicide, there's burglary, sexual assault, and there's drug offenses. And there's many more. These are just a couple examples. We can see here a list of types of crime, the frequency and percentage that they occur. So some definitely more common, such as burglary, definitely much more common than some of the other ones listed here. But still, we have to take all these into consideration and know how to handle these, because we're not sure what crime scene we're going to be coming up to when we're doing an investigation. So also looking at crime scenes, we're also looking at how age could play a factor. Some crimes simply are more likely to be committed by certain age groups. So this is where it doesn't give us an idea of, what individual committed what crime, but it can increase the odds of when we identify an individual or identify a crime, what age group might we be looking at as far as increased odds based on the information here in the data to look at who we might be looking for a potential suspect. Then we have our physical locations. So keep in mind that we have indoor locations, we have outdoor locations, we can have car or vehicle locations. So all of these have their own challenges. So we must take these all into consideration, be able to handle any of these, because sometimes we even have multiple physical locations involved. Now, a victim's location specifically, well, we're looking at a primary crime scene because this is the original location of the crime. But as I mentioned, there could also be secondary crime scenes, and this is kind of an alternate location where additional evidence may be found. A body could have been murdered at one place and transported to another. So keep in mind that just because we're observing one particular crime scene, we might be thinking about the potential for there to be another crime scene that may also need to be investigated. We could look into the size of the scene in general, so keep in mind that there can be everything from the macroscopic down to the microscopic. So a macroscopic scene contains many microscopic scenes within it. The macroscopic is basically where the body is found in a field, a gunshot to a victim, something we can see very easily. Microscopic is trace evidence such as a gunshot residue, tire tread marks, or the whole host of trace evidence that we could be looking at investigating. So keep in mind that we want to be mindful of the large scale items, but also don't forget about the small scale items as well. Now, when we're classifying a scene, so here's just one example where thieves break into a jewelry store, jewelry is taken, the suspect gets in a getaway car, and the stolen goods are taken to their apartment. Again, how would you classify this scene? This is kind of like example A. So if you want to think about this, pause the video here and think about this. The answer will be revealed on the next slide. So looking at the scene, how do we classify it? Well, with the information presented here, we'd be looking at a robbery. That'd be the type of crime. It'd be located indoors. The primary scene would be the jewelry store, but we also have the secondary scene of the thieves' getaway car and also their apartment. So again, this is just how we would classify the example of that scene provided there as Exhibit A. For Exhibit B here, looking at this scenario, a man was strangled in his home. The perpetrators used the man's van to transport the body and dump it in a nearby lake. How do we go about the classification of this scene as Exhibit B? Pause the video here before I reveal the answers. So looking here at our Exhibit B, how do we classify this scene? Well, with the information presented, here's what we'd be looking at. The type of crime would be a homicide. The physical location or locations would be both indoors and outdoors. The primary scene would be the indoor, the home of the victim who was stabbed or shot by the offender, in this case strangled. Our secondary scene would be the outdoors. Since this would involve the van and the point at the lake where the victim was dumped, it would be considered a secondary crime scene. So this just gives a brief example of how we'd be comparing and classifying two different examples of crime scenes.